sunshine, running beside the lions. I've been feeling down.
Okay, we're down at the marina at Hartlepool, and there's a lot of marinas, but there's a mixture, a good mixture of working boats and also leisure boats. And it's amazing, this is a pool, you know, and then there's two lock gates to get out into the ocean, and there's these massive breakwaters that Peter will show you to protect the entrance to this basin.
And what about the apartments behind you?
Oh, the apartments behind us, we're looking at them. They're about £120,000 for a two-bedroom apartment with views of this marina, which I think is pretty cheap, you know. And the foreshore, there's a beach over just like 200 metres away.
Quite impressive breakwaters. And then we have the lock gates.
Cute, it's a cutie boat.
The locks emptying.
There's a real art to marine engineering. It's the most punishing environment to create something that moves and has to perform every time.
You can understand why the boat has to be tied up so it doesn't get sucked into the gates.
It's so cute. Look, it's tiny.
Hartlepool's connection to the sea is a little awkward. They're known as monkey hangars. During the Napoleonic Wars, a French ship was wrecked off the coast. The sole survivor was the ship's mascot, a monkey. He was hung by the locals.
This was a private motor cruiser. It just went out to the islands before World War II. During World War II, it was commissioned as HMT Watchful, and it also went over and rescued people off the beaches at Dunkirk. So it's really cool. It's really cool. It had a gun during the war mounted on the front deck.
We went to the battery, and it was where the first people were killed on land during World War I. It was quite interesting and had a beautiful view of the ocean. There was heaps of old artillery and everything there, and armoured personnel carriers and tanks. It came under fire, and it returned fire during World War I, and was also manned during World War II.
It feels surreal to visit these sites today. We thought this was a thing of the past, only to be seen in museums. It's very sad to think this is happening again.
That's the Mark III.
Yeah, rifle, service rifle number 1 Mark III.
Yeah.
Because we only got the single shot.
We only got the tripod machine gun. I was in submarine, so we had F1s, the L2A2 and shotguns. And just as I was leaving, I went to do the training course on it.
If you look at that, you got a ramp,
Yeah.
and it was a magazine.
Oh yeah, like
The magazine, yeah, it's a magazine in the stock, and the ramp, when you cock it, the ramp comes up, loads of magazine, and it was 8mm, which was totally different to everybody else's.
1886 or something?
Yeah. Well, that's when it was designed. I'm not sure when this one was made, but it's.
usually it's stamped on the side. Yeah, no, but you got to undo this banding clamp for the rest.
Man was really nice, and we really reflected on the futility of war and the sad state of the Ukraine conflict at the moment. Yeah, Hartlepool, when we went there, everybody told us it was going to be, kind of depressing and not very nice. But we found things like the art gallery, to be beacons of really nice things. And there was a display on of nautical art, and it was really interesting and beautiful, and the people were just lovely. It's in an old church on Church Street. The art gallery had been repurposed 30 years ago.
The fat man was off to the Navy Museum.
I am about to go on this floating frigate at Hartlepool, supposedly the oldest floating warship in the world. It's really impressive. It looks like it could set sail tomorrow. And it's interesting, it was built for the Napoleonic Wars and it's made out of teak. And almost all of it's still original, so it's really amazing. And it served service in World War One as a training ship. And it's really interesting, it really is. So if you look around, this is the main gun deck. And the capstan's over there and everything. It's quite low, the ceilings. Supposedly like 99% of it's original, and because it was made out of teak and not white oak, it's survived very well, and it's just very impressive. Like you can see the capstan over there, and the decks are original, and the beams are all original, and it's just very, very interesting. And it actually did a few cruises, and it's still owned by the Navy, and it's very interesting. Yeah. So these are the big windows at the back of the ship. Very impressive, and the side galleries out there. I suppose this would have been the captain's cabin when it wasn't broken down for action. So there you go, the side gallery is a toilet, so like an ensuite with a view. Captain lived large. You see the gun deck, it's very long, and there's another third of it behind me, but the walls are up. It's pretty amazing. Wow. That was good, wasn't it? I'm going to go down on the lower gun deck now. Okay, so there's no guns down here, but you can see where the crew used to eat and sleep. There's the hammocks up there, and there's all the tables that can be moved out of the way. And up here, I suppose this is where all the officers used to sleep. They got their little cabins and everything. It's really quite nice, and there's even decks below this. You can see the chains here going up to the capstan. Pretty amazing. It's only probably 5'5" height down here. And you can see how all the walls can come down. This would be the wardroom, I gather. Yeah, it's very impressive. You can see the steering tackle for the tiller arm. There you go. Look, it's all very original. Okay, I'm down in the powder store, and you can see it's all covered in copper, so there's no sparks or anything, and that's your powder stores there. And you can see the lights, one of those safety lamps that's inside a ventilated room. And we're right down the very bottom of the ship, and the door is very small to get into, like very small. You can see the back of the ship through there, on the stern. See there? Like it's very small. I'm not really built to get down here. And you can see they used to store dried food underneath the deck. And that's the surgeon's room, and the marine store. And over here's the captain's store. Everything's so there. Using the lower decks to store everything. As you can see, like everything's still here from when they used to go sailing, and you're right down the bottom, and the bilge is very dry. And you've got the very old rigging as well, and cannonballs. There's a real smell down here too. You can see the massive hemp hawser lines there. It's really quite amazing, and the big links for the anchor chain, and the barrels, the salt barrels. They used to store all their fish and also their water in barrels down the bottom. And you've got all the cordage stores as well. Look at that. And look, there's some coal there as well for the galley fires. Knee braces or the elbow braces for the main beams going across the deck. And remembering this is the crew deck, not the firing deck, but it's really amazing. And this is quite large, like the ceiling here would be 14 feet high. Yeah, so I think there's a livestock place for livestock up here. So when they go to sea, they can have some fresh meat. So there's a deck for livestock. The vegans would be very unimpressed. Here's the forward magazine, and I'm going to have to get down my hands and knees to get into there. So it's very small to get into. I'm bent over double. There we go, the forward magazine, which is bigger than the aft magazine. It's really very impressive. Once you get in, it's really quite large and all copper lined. But getting in, I reckon the door must be 3.5 feet tall. I'm not going to try it. I'm not sure if this is coming across, but it gives you a scale. It's quite low, but it's quite long. And you can see one of the main masts coming through there. And there's about 6 feet behind me to the bow. So, you know, there's hundreds of men on these boats to man the guns and the sails. It's amazing that they could go to sea for years with just all the provisions on board. See the bowsprit coming down and being braced just inside, and then the anchor chains going through. And then if you look back, you can see the main gun deck one side, but there's a false wall. It keeps going for another like 30 or 40 feet out the back, which I take would have been the captain's cabin. But it had guns in it as well. These guns are 18 pounders because it's a frigate, but there was 24 pounders on, you know, the men of war, and upstairs there's going to be 12 pounders and 24 pound carronades. There's the bowsprit from outside, and now we're on the main deck. You can see the 12 pounders, significantly smaller than the 18 pounders down below, and the bulwarks, which are probably 5'5" high, and you can see the aft deck's got quite a lot more cannons on it. It's really amazing. It's really looks like it could set sail tomorrow. As you can see, it's fully rigged, and it's got its crow's nests up there, everything. You'd have to be a brave man to get up there. For me, I wouldn't like it. And same with right out there on the end of the bowsprit. It's got to be 60 feet away, the end. The little fellas, they have no problems with it, but the rest of us, it seems a small space to share with hundreds of your fellow shipmates. Okay, and now we're heading back to where the captain would be, and there's those 24 pound carronades. So very short weapons, but heavy shells. There's a view from the back, and you can, if you're careful, you can see the bowsprit all the way up there near the clock face. So it's quite amazing. And you got your mizzen sail above here, all the way out the back. Here she is, still afloat after 200 years. And you know, they've done a really good job of making a Victorian dockyard as well, all around us. Still floating, and still looks like she could head out to sea tomorrow. But I don't think they've got the men for it anymore. I think we're all too weak, us men. We couldn't handle the living like that. So 1817, that makes 205 years old, and if you told me it was built 5 years ago, I'd have believed it. It looks immaculate. It's missing some of its guns. There should be guns sticking out the front there as well, you know, to fire in a stern chase. But you know, just absolutely amazing.
Hartlepool was absolutely lovely.